10 mechanics tried to fix the engine for 3 days. None could, but when that 36-year-old widow arrived in her beat-up truck wearing oil-stained coveralls, the men burst into laughter. "This ain't work for you," shouted the most experienced mechanic in front of everyone. What she did in 42 minutes made silence fall like a heavy curtain over the shop. Sarah Mitchell pulled her old pickup into the corner of the industrial street and grabbed her worn canvas tool bag from the passenger seat. 36 years old, faded blue coveralls that had seen better days, dark blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail with a few strands escaping, work boots scuffed from years of use. She didn't look like someone desperate for work, but she was. 3 weeks since the jobs at her garage had dried up completely. 3 weeks since the medical bills for her late husband Tom's final treatment arrived, heavier than the month before. 3 weeks watching her mother-in-law Helen bake cookies until midnight, trying to make up what Sarah could no longer bring home. She'd already knocked on 4 shops that morning. All the same answers. Not hiring. Positions filled. Come back another time. Skeptical looks, doors closing politely, some not even that politely. Henderson's auto shop was the 5th on her list. Blue-painted cinder block walls, corrugated metal roof, 3 yellow garage doors. The sign nailed to the exterior wall was simple, hand-painted in red letters on white background. Automotive mechanic needed. Sarah touched the cold metal of the sign. 8 years of practical experience. 8 years learning every secret of engines alongside Tom, the husband who taught her everything. 8 years, that should count for something. She took a deep breath and pushed through the metal door. The screech announced her entrance. Lunch hour. 10 men in blue coveralls were scattered throughout the shop. Some sat on low benches, eating sandwiches wrapped in brown paper. Others leaned against tool benches, talking. The smell of grease, motor oil, and hot metal filled the air. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. Constant buzzing mixed with the sound of a radio playing softly in the background. When Sarah crossed the threshold, silence fell like a heavy curtain. 10 pairs of eyes turned. Some dropped sandwiches in their laps, others stopped coffee cups halfway to their mouths. Nobody said anything, but Sarah felt the weight of every look, surprise, confusion, instant skepticism. A woman here, in the mechanic shop, during lunch hour. "Afternoon," Sarah said, voice firm, projected to reach every corner of the shop. "Looking for the person in charge?" A man stood up from the bench in back. Albert Richardson, 45 years old, black hair with abundant grey at the temples, slicked back with gel, thick moustache, navy blue coveralls darker than the others, mark of authority, perpetually serious expression like someone carrying the weight of many problems. He didn't smile, made no welcoming gesture. "That's me," Albert said. Voice deep, rough, crossed his arms over his broad chest. "What do you need?" Sarah walked until she was about 10 feet from him. She felt the other mechanics adjust their positions. Some leaned forward, curious. Others crossed arms, skeptical. Nobody went back to eating. "Saw the sign outside," Sarah said. "Mechanic needed. I'm a mechanic with 8 years of practical experience in automotive repair. I'd like to apply for the position." Silence. 2 seconds that felt like 20. Then a low laugh came from somewhere on the left, then another, barely contained, almost a disguised cough. A third mechanic, younger, maybe mid-20s, turned to the guy beside him and murmured something Sarah couldn't hear, but it prompted a knowing smile. Albert didn't laugh. He looked at Sarah like looking at something unexpected and inconvenient. A bill that arrived on the wrong day, a part that came defective. Then he turned his head slightly, looking at the mechanics as if expecting someone to intervene, explain the misunderstanding, make the situation return to normal. Nobody said anything. "The position." Albert paused, ran his tongue over his lips. "The position's already filled." "Oh yeah." Sarah didn't look away. "The sign's still out there." "Forgot to take it down," Albert said too quickly. "I understand." Sarah didn't move, didn't turn to leave, just stood there. Blue coveralls like a flame in that sea of darker blue-blonde hair shining under the fluorescent lights. "But since I came all this way, maybe you could give me a chance to show what I can do." A mechanic in back, older, maybe 50, black hair slicked back in a subtle pompadour, clean-shaven face, overly confident posture, let out a louder laugh. "A chance to show," William Cross repeated, as if the phrase were a joke. Sarah turned her head in his direction. She didn't know the name yet, but she recognized the type. The best mechanic in the shop, the most experienced, used to being the reference point. He was leaning against the tool bench, arms crossed, eyebrow raised, sideways smile mixing amusement and superiority. 8 years of experience, William said, dragging out the words. Doing what exactly? Cleaning engines or fixing them? Low laughs circulated. They weren't cruel, they were worse, habitual, automatic, as if the doubt was so obvious it didn't even need articulation. Sarah didn't respond to William. She turned back to Albert. "I see you've got a car there in the center." She pointed to the turquoise-blue Chevrolet Impala, hood raised, engine exposed, tools scattered around like evidence of a lost battle. "What's the problem?" Albert frowned even more. "We're trying to figure that out." "How long?" Uncomfortable silence. Albert exchanged looks with William, who shrugged. "Couple days," Albert said vaguely. 3 days, corrected a short, grey-haired mechanic sitting near the car. 10 of us trying, nothing. Sarah walked toward the Impala. The mechanics instinctively stepped aside, opening space as if she carried something contagious. She stopped beside the raised hood, looked inside. 327 V8 engine, 4-barrel carburetor, visible ignition system. She didn't touch anything yet, just observed, eyes scanning each component, each connection, each piece. "Let me make you a proposal," Sarah said, still looking at the engine. Then she turned to Albert. "Give me a shot with this car. If I can't identify and fix the problem, I'll leave here immediately and never come back. But if I do—" She paused, extended her hand. "I get the position." The silence now was different, not of discomfort, but of expectation. Sarah saw Albert look at her extended hand as if it were a trap. "In 3 days, 10 mechanics couldn't fix that engine," Albert said. Voice slow, each word measured. "You think you'll do it in how long?" "However long it takes," Sarah said. "But if I don't get it done today, I'm gone." William laughed out loud. "This I gotta see." Albert hesitated, looked at the car, at Sarah, at the mechanics around, all watching, some with amused expressions, others genuinely curious. Finally he sighed deeply, like someone accepting a bet they know they'll win, and shook Sarah's hand. "All right," he said. "Show us what you've got." Sarah nodded, pulled work gloves from her coverall pocket, put them on with precise movements. Cold metal touched her palms through the thin fabric. She leaned over the engine, began examining the carburetor connections. The mechanics moved closer, not to help, but to watch. They formed a semicircle around the car, some leaning on benches, others standing with arms crossed. It was a show. She was the attraction. 20 minutes passed. Sarah dismantled the fuel system, checked valves, tested compression, adjusted timing. Her hands moved with precision that came from years of practice. Not from reading manuals, but from real experience, from dozens of engines taken apart and rebuilt alongside Tom. Tom, the husband who taught her everything, 10 years older, had been a mechanic since his teens, working to help support the family after his father walked out. Sarah had always admired him, big, skilled hands, infinite patience to explain, genuine pride every time she got something difficult right. "You've got natural talent, babe," Tom would say, smiling as Sarah, at 18, adjusted valves for the first time without supervision. "But talent without practice ain't worth nothing. Practice, mess up, learn, then practice more." Sarah had practiced for 8 years, and now, at 36, even with Tom gone for 2 years from the cancer that changed everything, even with the garage closed and customers disappeared, Sarah knew she was ready. Tom always said, when someone judges you, ask for a chance to prove your technical ability. When it gets to that stage, there'll be no more reason to judge you. That was exactly what she was doing. 25 minutes. Sarah adjusted the carburetor adjustment screws, wiped her hands on the rag hanging from her pocket, got in the car, and turned the key. Click, click. Nothing. The engine didn't start. William let out a contained laugh. Other mechanics exchanged looks, universal expression of, "I knew it." Albert crossed his arms, looking at the clock on the wall. "We don't have all afternoon," he said, voice loaded with polite impatience. Sarah got out of the car, went back to the engine. Some mechanics suppressed laughs. William approached, looked over her shoulder with an expression of confirmed superiority. Then he looked at her directly and said, voice loud enough for everyone to hear, "Oh, this ain't work for you." At that moment, no mechanic held back laughter. Laughter exploded, not contained chuckles, but loud guffaws that echoed off the concrete walls, doubling some forward. It was collective mockery, undisguised scorn. Sarah received the phrase with her head high. It wasn't the first time she'd heard something like that, but the difference was that now she knew with absolute certainty she'd detected the problem. Weak electrical connection in the distributor combined with an overly rich mixture in the carburetor. Double problem, double solution. She was on the right track. She just needed a few more minutes. She didn't respond to William's phrase with words. She let her hands respond. She went back to the engine, adjusted the distributor, recalibrated the air-fuel mixture, turning the adjustment screws with millimetric precision. Her hands worked quickly now, with the confidence of someone who knows exactly what they're doing. As the minutes passed, something changed. The laughter began to diminish, then stopped completely. Some mechanics leaned forward, watching more attentively. The technique, the sequence, the adjustments she was making, repairs they hadn't considered, calibrations they hadn't tried. She was doing things that 10 mechanics in 3 days hadn't thought to do. The mocking looks gave way to curious looks, then to something resembling hesitant respect. 35 minutes. 40. William continued watching, but now his raised eyebrow had lowered. The sideways smile had disappeared. He watched Sarah's hands like someone seeing something unexpected, real competence, genuine skill, deep knowledge. 42 minutes since she began. Sarah wiped her hands, partially closed the hood, got in the car a second time. All eyes fixed on her. The silence was almost physical. Nobody laughed now, nobody mocked, they just watched, waiting. Sarah turned the key. For a second, nothing. Then the engine roared. Not a weak, hesitant noise, but a deep, firm, constant roar. The sound filled the entire shop, reverberating off the concrete walls, the metal ceiling, every corner. The Impala vibrated gently, engine running in perfect rotation. Sarah let the engine run for 15 seconds. The sound was music, proof, validation. Then she turned it off, got out of the car. The silence now was of shock. William stood without reaction, mouth slightly open, expression of genuine surprise. Other mechanics looked at each other as if expecting confirmation they'd really seen that. A young mechanic, no more than 25, whispered to the guy beside him, "Who is this woman?" Albert walked to the car, opened the hood again, looked at the still warm engine, ran his hand over the cables, checked the connections Sarah had adjusted. His expression, perpetually serious, perpetually closed, changed. Not a full smile, but something close. Respect, recognition. He turned to Sarah, eyes shining with something she didn't expect to see, admiration. "You're hired," Albert said, voice firm. "You can start tomorrow." If you're enjoying this story of how Sarah proved everyone wrong, hit that like button and subscribe to Underrated Mechanics for more inspiring stories. And drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. I love hearing from you all around the world. Sarah's first official day at Henderson's auto shop began at 7 a.m. She arrived 15 minutes early. Blue coveralls, clean but worn, hair pulled back precisely, small canvas bag with her personal tools, flathead screwdrivers that Tom had polished to perfection, calibrated wrenches, compression gauge that had been her grandfather's. Albert greeted her with a brief nod. "Your station's over there." He pointed to a workbench near the back of the shop, between two mechanics Sarah recognized from the day before. "Day's jobs are on the board. Take what you can handle. If you have questions, ask." "Understood," Sarah said. The 10 mechanics were already there. When Sarah walked to her station, she felt the looks, not as obvious as the day before, but they were there. Some quickly looked away, others watched a few seconds longer before returning to their own tasks. William, leaning against his bench on the other side of the shop, simply looked at her without expression, arms crossed. Sarah set her bag on the bench. The surface was worn metal, oil stains impregnated in every inch, small dents from years of use. There was a rusty vise on one end, a hanging lamp with a weak incandescent bulb, community tools on hooks on the wall, some organized, others just tossed there. First job of the day, oil change on a Ford truck, simple. Sarah did it in 25 minutes, checked levels of other fluids without being asked, cleaned the station afterward. Second job, front brake replacement on a Dodge, more complex. Sarah dismantled the system, inspected each piece, noticed the master cylinder had a small leak. She went to Albert. "The master cylinder's leaking," she said. "We have parts." Albert looked up from the engine he was working on, looked at Sarah, then at the younger mechanic beside him, Eddie Gomez, maybe 23, who'd worked on that Dodge before. "Eddie didn't mention that," Albert said. Eddie shrugged. "I checked the brakes, not the cylinder." "Brakes don't work in isolation," Sarah said. "Tone factual, not accusatory. The whole system needs to be in good shape." Albert nodded slowly. "Check inventory. If we don't have it, make a list to order." Sarah found the cylinder in storage, replaced it, bled the brake system, tested pressure, worked perfectly. By noon, she'd completed 4 jobs, all done well, all on time. During lunch, the mechanics clustered as they had the day before. Sarah sat at her bench eating the sandwich Helen had made that morning. Turkey and cheese, simple but filling. Nobody approached to talk to her, but nobody said anything negative either. It was as if she'd created an invisible bubble around herself, respected from a distance but not integrated, except for one moment. A mechanic, Mike Flores, mid-40s, grey hair, huge hands, passed by her bench carrying a box of parts. He stopped. "Good work on the Dodge," he said, voice deep but not hostile. Sarah looked up. "Thanks." Mike nodded and kept walking. It was a small moment but significant. The afternoon brought more jobs. Sarah noticed a pattern. They gave her the jobs nobody else wanted. The complicated ones, the ones that took too much time, the ones with potential to become problems. It wasn't deliberate punishment, it was a test. They wanted to see if she was really good, or if the Impala had been luck. One of those jobs was a Buick with an intermittent electrical problem. The owner had come 3 times. 3 different mechanics had tried to fix it. The problem was still there. Sarah spent 2 hours tracing the electrical system, wire by wire, connection by connection. She found the problem in a place nobody had checked. A corroded ground connector behind the dashboard, hidden so well it was only visible if you completely removed the lower panel. She fixed it, tested the system, worked perfectly. When the owner came to pick up the Buick that afternoon, Albert tested it personally before handing it over. Started up, lights worked, radio turned on, everything perfect. The owner, a man about 60 with a felt hat, smiled broadly. "Finally, who fixed it?" Albert nodded towards Sarah. "She did." The man looked at Sarah with genuine surprise, then with gratitude. "Ma'am, you saved me." "Thank you." Sarah nodded. "You're welcome, sir." When the man left, Albert approached Sarah's station. She was cleaning tools, preparing for the next day. "Good work," Albert said. Brief pause. "That Buick was driving us crazy." "The problem was well hidden," Sarah said. "Just needed patience." Albert nodded. His eyes, normally so serious, so closed, showed something different. Not warmth exactly, but approval. Recognition that she wasn't beginner's luck, she was real competence. That night, Sarah took the bus home with something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. When she arrived, Helen was in the living room, sitting by the window, knitting under the lamplight. Tom's mother had moved in after he died, helping with bills, helping keep Sarah sane. "How'd it go?" Helen asked, setting down her knitting. Sarah sat on the couch, let out a long sigh. "Went well. Better than I expected." "They treat you right?" "They treated me professionally," Sarah said, choosing the word carefully. "They weren't friendly, but they weren't hostile either. They gave me tough jobs. I did them well. I think I earned some respect." Helen smiled. That smile Sarah had come to know well, full of motherly pride, even though Sarah wasn't her daughter by blood. "Tom would be so proud," Helen said softly. "There's still a lot to prove," Sarah said, "but it's a start." Helen came over, put her hand on Sarah's shoulder. "Dinner in 10 minutes, and Sarah, I'm glad to hear it went well." That night, while they ate the chicken casserole Helen had prepared, Sarah felt something that had been missing since Tom's diagnosis, since the garage closed, since the money started running out. She felt stability, not complete yet, not secure, but there, a foundation to build on. Before we continue with Sarah's journey, make sure you're subscribed to Underrated Mechanics so you don't miss what happens next. And if this story is resonating with you, smash that like button. The next 2 weeks passed at a constant rhythm. Sarah arrived early, worked quietly, completed each task with meticulous precision. The mechanics began to get used to her presence, no longer looking at her as an anomaly, but as part of the shop. Not exactly accepted, but tolerated, respected from a distance. But not everything was simple. Sarah began to notice small things, tools disappearing from her station when she needed them. The torque wrench she'd left there 5 minutes ago was now gone. The pressure gauge she swore she'd put in her drawer, mysteriously absent. Nothing expensive, nothing she couldn't replace by borrowing, but frequent enough to be a pattern. Then there were the confusing orders. Albert would assign her a job, she'd start, and halfway through another mechanic, usually someone close to William, would tell her Albert had changed priorities, that she should work on something else. Sarah would go confirm with Albert, and he'd deny saying that. The 3rd week brought the Studebaker incident. It was a beautiful car, champion coupe model, bottle green paint, shiny chrome, beige leather interior. The owner was a doctor, meticulous man who brought the car every month for preventive maintenance. Simple work usually, oil change, tire rotation, general inspection. William always handled that car. It was one of his regular clients. But that week, William was busy with a commercial truck requiring complete transmission rebuild. Albert assigned the Studebaker to Sarah. "Just routine maintenance," Albert said. "Doctor, Rivera's an important client. Mind the details." Sarah nodded. "Understood." She started with the oil change. When she drained the old oil, she noticed something strange. Small metallic particles in the fluid. Not many, but enough to worry about. Sign of internal engine wear. She inspected more deeply, checked compression in each cylinder. 3 were fine. The 4th showed slightly low pressure. She could have ignored it. The car ran fine. The customer hadn't reported problems. It was routine maintenance, not complete diagnostics. But Sarah didn't work that way. If there was a problem, however small, the customer deserved to know. She went to Albert, explained what she found. Albert listened, frowned. "What do you recommend?" "Needs deeper engine inspection," Sarah said. "Possible wear on piston rings in cylinder 4. Not urgent yet, but if not addressed, it'll get worse. Better to prevent now than repair a catastrophe later. Albert nodded. Talk to Dr. Rivera when he comes to pick it up. Explain it. Give him an estimate. When Dr. Rivera arrived that afternoon, man in his mid-50s, gold-framed glasses, impeccable grey suit, Sarah was waiting with the Studebaker ready and a handwritten report. Doctor, Rivera, your maintenance is complete, but I found something during the inspection I think you should know about. She explained the metallic particles, the low compression, what it probably meant. She spoke in clear but not alarmist terms, gave options, monitor for now or do the preventive repair. Dr. Rivera listened attentively. His eyes, initially surprised to be talking to a woman mechanic, changed to professional appreciation. Nobody's mentioned this before, he said. It's hard to detect in early stage, Sarah said. Only noticeable if you're specifically looking. How much would the repair cost? Sarah gave him the estimate she'd calculated with Albert. Reasonable, fair. Dr. Rivera thought for a moment. Let's do it, but not now. I'm traveling next week. Can I bring it when I get back? Of course, schedule with Albert for the date. Dr. Rivera extended his hand. Sarah shook it. Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. I appreciate the honesty and the skill to detect that. When the doctor left, Sarah turned and found William watching from his station, expression she couldn't completely decipher, something between irritation and grudging respect. That night, as Sarah cleaned her station, Mike approached again. This time, he didn't just pass by. He stopped, leaned his hip against the bench. Heard about the Studebaker, he said. Yeah, well, a lot of guys would have overlooked that. Sarah shrugged. Just did my job. Mike laughed briefly. You did more than the job. That's the point. He paused. Some guys here won't admit it out loud, but you're proving you know what you're doing. Just some? Sarah asked, half smiling. Mike smiled too. Give it time. The rest'll come around. When Sarah got home that night, she found Helen with news. Tom's final medical bills had been covered. The first paycheck from Sarah's salary had been enough. Helen had stopped taking in sewing work late into the night. The financial tension that had hung over the house like a dark cloud for months was beginning to lift. You did it, Helen said that night while they ate. Got the job, earned respect, proved yourself. Sarah smiled, but she knew the battle wasn't over. She'd gained ground, but there was still much to prove. Fourth week at Henderson's Auto Shop. Tuesday morning, Sarah was under the hood of a Plymouth when she heard the sound, engine purring in a low, deep, distinctive tone. She straightened up, wiped her hands on the rag, looked toward the entrance. The car entering the shop was a work of art. 1959 Cadillac Eldorado convertible, pearl-white paint, gleaming in the morning sun, blood-red leather interior, chrome so polished it reflected like mirrors. The kind of car that cost more than most people made in 3 years. The driver got out, man about 60, completely white hair slicked back, cream linen suit, Italian leather shoes, gold watch on his wrist. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone who'd never had to worry about money. Albert came out of his small office in back, wiping his hands. When he saw who it was, his posture changed, straightened up, smiled, something rare. He walked faster. Mr. Vega, Albert said, extending his hand. Wasn't expecting you this week. Richard Vega shook Albert's hand briefly. Problem with the Cadillac. Engine's making a strange noise when I accelerate. Started yesterday. The 10 mechanics had stopped. Everyone knew who Richard Vega was, owner of 3 car dealerships, 2 commercial buildings downtown, investments in half a dozen other businesses, a client who could bring more clients, a client you couldn't disappoint. Albert looked at the Eldorado with something like apprehension. What kind of noise? Metallic, irregular. Worse when the engine's hot. Albert nodded slowly. looked around the shop, all the mechanics watching. His gaze passed over William, who normally handled the most complex jobs, but William was knee-deep in a truck engine rebuild that would take at least 2 more days. "Let me check it out," Albert said. He walked to the Cadillac, opened the hood. Sarah watched from her station, saw Albert inspect the engine, his expression becoming more worried with each second. Then she saw him approach William, talk in a low voice. William wiped his hands, walked to the Cadillac, inspected as well. 5 minutes of consultation between Albert and William. Voices too low to hear the words, but the body language was clear. Uncertainty. Albert turned to Mr. Vega. "We need more time to diagnose. Can you leave it a few hours?" Mr. Vega looked at his watch. "I have a meeting at 3. Can you have it ready by then?" "We'll do our best." "I don't want your best, Albert. I want it fixed correctly." "Understood, Mr. Vega." When Mr. Vega left in a taxi Albert called, the shop fell into tense silence. The Eldorado was there, hood raised like a patient on an operating table, and nobody was completely sure what to do. Albert gathered William and 2 other senior mechanics, Mike and a man named Rafael Torres. They talked in low voices beside the car. Sarah couldn't hear, but she could see. 20 minutes. 30. The 4 mechanics dismantled pieces, inspected, reassembled. The noise was hard to replicate in the shop because it only occurred under certain conditions. Sarah went back to her Plymouth, but kept peripheral attention on the Eldorado. She heard fragments of conversation. Could be the timing chain. Sounds deeper than that. Loose connecting rods. We'd have to dismantle half the engine to check. 45 minutes. An hour. Albert looked stressed. William looked frustrated. Mike and Raphael exchanged theories, but none seemed certain. Sarah finished the Plymouth, cleaned her station, walked slowly toward the Eldorado, like someone just going to get a tool from the other side of the shop. She stopped beside the Cadillac, looked at the engine. 390 V8, big, complex, multiple integrated systems, beautiful in its complexity. "Need something?" Albert asked, noticing her presence. Sarah hesitated. This was a delicate moment. Important client, senior mechanics already working. She was the rookie, the woman, 3 weeks of experience in this shop, but she remembered Tom's words. "When you see the problem, say what you see." Technical truth doesn't respect hierarchies. "Can I hear the noise?" Sarah asked. William looked up, eyebrow arched. "Hear it?" "If you can replicate it, I just want to listen." Albert exchanged a look with William, then nodded. "Mike, start it up. Rev it like Mr. Vega did." Mike got in the Cadillac, started it. The engine purred smoothly at first. Then Mike revved it. There it was, a metallic, irregular sound, like something small was loose and hitting against something bigger. Sarah closed her eyes, listened, blocked out all other sounds from the shop. The radios, distant conversations, the buzz of lights, just the engine, just that specific noise. 10 seconds. 20. She opened her eyes. "It's the water pump," Sarah said. Silence. William looked at her. The water pump. The bearings worn. When the engine heats up, thermal expansion causes the shaft to spin slightly off-center. It hits against the housing. That's why the noise is irregular and worse when it's hot. Albert frowned. "You sure?" Sarah walked to the engine, pointed. "Check the pump. Remove the belt, turn the shaft manually. If the bearing's bad, you'll feel play." William and Mike exchanged a look. Then William leaned over the engine, removed the water pump belt, put his hand on the pulley, turned. His expression changed. "There's play," he said, voice lower. He turned it more. "Definitely lateral play. The bearing's worn." Albert approached, checked personally, nodded slowly. "She's right. It's the water pump." Silence in the shop. All the other mechanics had stopped working. Everyone was watching. William looked at Sarah, expression she couldn't completely read. Then he looked at Albert. "We've got a replacement pump in inventory. I can change it in 40 minutes. "Do it," Albert said. While William worked, Albert approached Sarah at her station. "How do you know?" he asked. Sarah shrugged. The tone of the noise, the frequency. There's only a few things that sound like that when the engine's hot. Bad water pumps have a distinctive sound. Most people don't hear those differences. My husband taught me to listen. Engines talk, Sarah said. You just need to know their language. Albert nodded slowly, something in his eyes. Deeper respect now. Not just recognition of basic skill, but of something more. Intuition, knowledge that goes beyond the technical. 40 minutes later, the El Dorado was fixed. William tested it. No noise. Engine purred perfectly. When Mr. Vega came back at 3, Albert personally explained the problem and solution. Who diagnosed the problem? Mr. Vega asked. Albert looked toward where Sarah was cleaning tools. She did. Mr. Vega followed his gaze, surprise on his face. Brief, but there. The new mechanic? Yes. Mr. Vega walked toward Sarah. She straightened up, wiped her hands. Mrs. Mitchell, right? Yes, sir. Excellent work. Accurate diagnosis, quick repair. He pulled out his wallet, left a generous tip specifically for Sarah. Next time the Cadillac needs service, I want you to handle it. Sarah nodded, professional. Would be my pleasure, Mr. Vega. When Mr. Vega left, driving the El Dorado that now sounded perfect, the shop fell into a different silence than before. Not uncomfortable, not tense, but respectful. William didn't say anything, but when he passed by Sarah's station an hour later, he nodded briefly. Silent acknowledgement. That night, when Sarah told Helen about the El Dorado, the older woman smiled with that motherly pride. Millionaire client specifically asked for you to handle his car, Helen said. Sarah, you're not just proving yourself anymore, you've arrived. But Sarah knew the road was still long. She'd won an important battle today, but the war for complete respect, for true acceptance, that continued. If Sarah's story is inspiring you, don't forget to subscribe to Underrated Mechanics and hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I read every single one. 2 months working at Henderson's Auto Shop. Sarah had found her rhythm. She arrived before everyone, left after most. Her station was always organized, tools in their places, surface clean, jobs completed with consistent precision. Customers were starting to ask for her specifically. Mr. Vega with his El Dorado, Dr. Rivera with his Studebaker, an elderly lady who brought her DeSoto every 2 weeks and only trusted Sarah to touch it. But with recognition came something darker. The sabotage had started subtle. Tools disappearing, confusing orders, but now it was more direct. On Tuesday, Sarah arrived to find her personal toolbox dumped on the floor. The screwdrivers Tom had polished to perfection, scattered. The grandfather's compression gauge lying on the concrete with oil spilled on it. Not broken, but clearly sabotaged. Nobody said anything. Nobody admitted anything. Sarah cleaned the tools silently, checked that they worked, put them back. She didn't complain to Albert, didn't accuse anyone, just kept working. The following Thursday was worse. She was assigned a Pontiac with a transmission problem. Sarah spent 3 hours diagnosing, dismantling, identifying the problem as a worn synchronizer in 3rd gear. She ordered the replacement part. When it arrived 2 days later, she installed the new synchronizer, assembled everything, tested the transmission. Didn't work, worse than before. Sarah frowned, dismantled again, inspected each piece. Then she saw it. The synchronizer she'd installed wasn't new. It was used, worn, painted to look new. Someone had switched the part in storage. She went directly to Albert with the synchronizer in hand. "This isn't the part I ordered," Sarah said, voice controlled but firm. "It's used. Someone switched it." Albert examined the part. His jaw tightened. He looked around the shop. All the mechanics working, nobody looking directly, but everyone aware of the confrontation. "Who had access to storage yesterday?" Albert asked, voice grave. Silence. "I'll ask once more. Who was in storage?" More silence. Then Eddie, the young mechanic, spoke up, voice low. "We all have access, boss. No way to know." Albert looked at Sarah. "I'll order a new part. It'll come out of my emergency budget. But this," he held up the fake synchronizer, "this won't happen again. Whoever did this, know that when I find out, you won't just be fired. I'll press charges for sabotage." The atmosphere in the shop became tense, like stretched steel wire. The mechanics exchanged looks, but nobody said anything. That night, when Sarah got home, Helen immediately noticed something was wrong. What happened? Sarah told her about the dumped tools, the sabotaged synchronizer, the growing tension. Helen listened in silence. When Sarah finished, she moved her chair closer, took Sarah's hand. "Sweetheart, listen to me carefully," she said. "This is going to get worse before it gets better. You know why? Why? Because you're winning. Every client who asks for you specifically, every job you complete perfectly, every time you prove you're better than some of them, you remind them of something they don't want to admit, that they were wrong about you. So what do I do? What you've always done. Work. Do your job so well nobody can deny it. And when they try to sabotage you, don't get angry, don't get revenge. Just fix what they broke and keep going. Eventually they'll get tired, or Albert will catch them. But you can't give them reason to fire you." Sarah nodded slowly. Helen was right, as always. That afternoon, when most of the mechanics had left, Sarah stayed late cleaning her station. Mike approached, looked around to make sure they were alone. "I know who's behind the sabotage," Mike said, voice low. Sarah looked up. "Who?" "Can't prove it, but I've seen things. Tools being moved when you think nobody's looking, parts disappearing right before you need them." Pause. "It's more than one person. There's a small group. William's not directly involved, but some of his close buddies are. Why are you telling me this?" Mike shrugged. "Because it ain't right. Because you work harder than half of them and deserve better." He paused. "And because if this continues, someone could get hurt, not physically, but professionally. I don't want to be part of that. Did you tell Albert?" "I don't have proof, just observations. But if I see something concrete, I will." Sarah nodded. "Thanks, Mike. Just watch your back." 3rd month, Friday afternoon. Sarah was finishing an oil change on a Chrysler when Albert called her to his office. It was small. Metal desk, filing cabinet, calendar on the wall, black rotary phone. Albert was sitting behind the desk, expression serious as always, but there was something different in his eyes. "Close the door," Albert said. Sarah closed it, stood. "Sit." She sat in the wooden chair facing the desk. Albert put his hands together on the desk. "I've been in this business 30 years, he began. "I've seen a lot of mechanics come and go. Good ones, bad ones, mediocre ones." Pause. "You're different." Sarah didn't say anything, just waited. "You're not just good. Technically, you're exceptional. You've got something that can't be taught. Intuition, patience, attention to detail. And something more important, character, integrity." "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me yet, because I'm going to be straight with you about something." Albert leaned back in his chair. "I know some of the mechanics are making your life difficult. I know about the sabotage. I don't have concrete proof yet, but I'm not blind." Sarah kept her expression neutral. "The reason I haven't acted is because I need solid evidence. Firing someone without proof could create legal problems, but I want you to know I'm watching, and when I have what I need, I'll act." "I understand. Now, to the main point." Albert opened a drawer, pulled out a manila envelope. "The owner of Henderson's auto shop, Arthur Fernandez, will be visiting next week. He does surprise inspections every few months. Reviews work, talks to mechanics, evaluates overall operation, and I want you to be prepared because I'm going to recommend you for something." Sarah frowned slightly. "For what?" Albert smiled. Small, but genuine. Mr. Fernandez is opening a new shop in another city. Bigger shop, more modern. He needs a head mechanic to run it. Someone with technical skill, leadership ability, capacity to train others. Pause. I'm going to recommend you. Silence. Sarah processed the words. But I've only been here 3 months, she said finally. And in 3 months you've done what some don't accomplish in 3 years. You've won loyal customers, solved problems that mechanics with decades of experience couldn't. You've maintained professionalism under pressure. Albert leaned forward. Sarah, I'm not doing this out of charity. I'm doing it because I believe you'll be excellent in that position, and because the business needs people like you. When will Mr. Fernandez decide? After his visit, he'll talk to you, evaluate your work, decide. But my recommendation carries weight. If I say you're the one, he'll listen. Sarah nodded slowly. Thank you for the trust. Don't let me down, Albert said, then softer. Though I know you won't. When Sarah left the office, her mind was spinning. Head mechanic, new shop. It was an enormous opportunity, but also immense responsibility. That night she told Helen. The older woman had tears in her eyes. Tom would be so proud. It's not certain yet, Sarah said. Mr. Fernandez has to approve. He will, Helen said with absolute certainty. Just be yourself. Show what you know. The rest will take care of itself. This is getting good, isn't it? Make sure you're subscribed to Underrated Mechanics so you don't miss what happens when the owner arrives. And hit that like button if you're rooting for Sarah. The following week passed slowly. Sarah worked with renewed focus. Every task completed perfectly, every customer treated with respect and professionalism, every problem solved with precision. And she noticed something change in the shop. The sabotage stopped. Not completely, but drastically diminished, as if whoever was behind it knew something important was about to happen and didn't want to be caught. Wednesday of the following week, Arthur Fernandez arrived. He was a man in his mid-60s, completely white but thick hair, impeccable dark suit, shiny shoes, presence that filled the space. He carried a leather briefcase and a small notebook where he took notes. He spent the morning observing, walked through the shop, watched each mechanic work, asked occasional questions, checked workstations, inspected tools, verified organization. When he reached Sarah's station, she was diagnosing an electrical problem in a Ford. She looked up briefly, nodded respectfully, went back to work. Mr. Fernandez watched silently for 5 minutes. Sarah worked as always, methodical, careful, precise. She traced each wire, checked each connection, found the problem. A blown fuse hidden behind the dashboard. She fixed it. How long have you been working here? Mr. Fernandez asked. 3 months, sir, Sarah answered without stopping work. And before that I worked with my husband, family garage. 8 years of practical experience. What kind of work do you do here? Whatever I'm assigned. Routine maintenance, complex diagnostics, major repairs, whatever's needed. Mr. Fernandez made a note. Albert says you're exceptional. Sarah wiped her hands, finally looked at Mr. Fernandez directly. Albert's generous with his words. I just do my job as best I can. Modest too. Mr. Fernandez smiled slightly. We'll talk later. That afternoon, Mr. Fernandez called Sarah to Albert's office. Both men were there, Albert standing by the window, Mr. Fernandez sitting behind the desk. Mrs. Mitchell, Mr. Fernandez began, Albert recommended you for an important position. Head mechanic at a new shop we're opening in San Antonio. Bigger shop, bigger team, significantly greater responsibility. Sarah nodded. Albert mentioned the possibility. It's a leadership position. It doesn't just require technical skill, but ability to train, manage, make decisions. Do you think you're ready for that? Sarah thought carefully before answering. I think nobody's completely ready for their first leadership position, sir, but I think I have a solid foundation, technical knowledge, work ethic, commitment to quality, and I'm willing to learn what I don't know. Mr. Fernandez nodded approvingly. Honest answer, better than false confidence. Pause. The salary will be significantly higher than what you earn now. You'll have a team of 12 mechanics under your management direction, complete responsibility for daily shop operation. I understand. You'll also have freedom to hire. If you accept the position, you can select some members of your team. Albert tells me you have ideas about that. Sarah nodded slowly. She did have ideas, specifically about hiring women mechanics, giving opportunities that had almost been denied to her. When do you need my answer? Sarah asked. Take the weekend to think about it. Talk to your family. It's a big decision. Mr. Fernandez stood, extended his hand. But so you know my opinion. I spent the day observing this shop. I saw your work. I talked to customers who specifically mentioned you. I saw how you handle pressure, how you solve problems, how you treat people. I think you'll be an excellent head mechanic. Sarah shook his hand. Thank you, sir. That night, Sarah and Helen sat at the kitchen table. It's everything you've worked for, Helen said, and more, but it means leaving this shop, leaving this city eventually. San Antonio's not that far, Sarah said. We can visit and think about what it means financially. Higher salary, stability. I'll be able to take better care of us. Helen smiled. And more importantly, you'll be able to make a real difference. Hire people who otherwise wouldn't have a chance. Sarah looked at her mother-in-law. What would you do? Helen's eyes got misty. Tom would have taken the job without hesitation, and he would have been so proud that you have this chance. Monday morning, Sarah walked into Albert's office. I accept, she said simply. Albert smiled, wide, genuine. I knew you would. The next 6 weeks passed in a whirlwind. Mr. Fernandez organized the transition carefully. Sarah continued working at Henderson's while receiving additional management training, basic accounting, inventory management, customer relations at administrative level. Being a head mechanic isn't just fixing cars, Albert told her one afternoon, showing her handwritten ledgers and budget worksheets. It's understanding numbers, knowing when a job's profitable and when you're losing money, how to negotiate with suppliers, how to handle difficult customers without losing the business relationship. Sarah absorbed everything like a sponge. She took meticulous notes, asked questions, practiced calculations until she mastered them. One Saturday morning, Mr. Fernandez took her to San Antonio to see the new shop. It was a new building, bigger than Henderson's, 3 times the size, with 12 work bays, modern hydraulic lifts, state-of-the-art diagnostic equipment. A spacious office with windows overlooking the work area. This will be your domain, Mr. Fernandez said, walking through the empty space. 12 mechanics will work here. You decide how to organize it, what procedures to implement, how to distribute work. Sarah walked slowly, imagining the space filled, cars in every bay, mechanics working, the hum of productive activity. I have a question, Sarah said. Go ahead. You said I'd have freedom to hire part of the team. Does that include diversifying the staff? Mr. Fernandez looked at her with interest. What do you mean specifically? Sarah chose her words carefully. There are qualified women mechanics who don't get opportunities because shops won't hire them, not from lack of skill, but from prejudice. I'd like to give opportunities based only on technical competence. Mr. Fernandez nodded slowly. How many women are you thinking? 4 or 5 out of the total team of 12 if I find qualified candidates. And you think the rest of the team, the men, will accept that? If I hire well, if I establish clear standards from the beginning, if I demonstrate that competence is all that matters, yes, I think it'll work. Mr. Fernandez walked to the window. looked outside. Long silence. Then, "You know it'll be controversial. Some customers might complain. Some mechanics who apply and get rejected might argue you gave unfair preference." "I know." "And you're willing to face that?" "Yes, because I think it's the right thing to do, and because I think it'll work commercially. Loyal customers don't care about the mechanic's gender. They care that their car's fixed right." Mr. Fernandez turned, looked at her directly. "You have my support. But with one condition. Every person you hire must be genuinely qualified. No charity, no quotas, just competence." "That's exactly how I plan to do it." "Then go ahead. Show me it can work." Sarah placed ads in newspapers in San Antonio and nearby cities. Qualified automotive mechanics wanted. Minimum 2 years experience. Technical evaluation required. Equal opportunity for all candidates. Applications started coming in. 50 total. Sarah reviewed them meticulously. Among the applications, she found 4 from women. Patricia Gutierrez, 28. Experience in family shop, specialty in electrical systems. Sylvia Jimenez, 24. Technical school graduate, strong diagnostic skills. Gloria Ruiz, 32, worked in military shop, diesel engine experience. Alice Lopez, 29, self-taught like Sarah, 8 years fixing cars for her neighborhood. Sarah scheduled interviews with all of them, but also with 25 male candidates who seemed qualified. Fair process meant evaluating everyone with the same rigorous criteria. The interviews were revealing. Some male candidates were surprised to see the person interviewing them was a woman. Some handled the surprise well, others didn't. Sarah immediately ruled those out, not for being men, but for showing prejudice that would sabotage the team. The 4 women arrived prepared, professional, hungry for opportunity. Sarah subjected them to the same technical evaluations as the men. Diagnose a problem in an engine prepared specifically for the test. Execute repair under observation. Explain thought process. Patricia diagnosed a complex electrical problem in 12 minutes. Sylvia identified a fuel system failure that 3 male candidates didn't detect. Gloria rebuilt a diesel engine with impeccable precision. Alice showed creativity in problem-solving that impressed even Sarah. At the end of the selection process, Sarah had her team. 8 men, all technically excellent, all with professional attitudes, all willing to work on a diverse team. 4 women, Patricia, Sylvia, Gloria, Alice. 12 mechanics total, the best team she could assemble. When she presented her selection to Mr. Fernandez, he reviewed each file carefully. They all passed technical evaluations with high scores. I set a high standard, only took the best. And it happens that 1/3 are women. It happens that the 4 women who applied were among the 12 most qualified people out of the total pool of 50. Mr. Fernandez smiled. Good. You have your team. Now show me it works. Before we see how Sarah's new shop opens, make sure you hit that subscribe button on Underrated Mechanics and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Henderson's Auto Shop, San Antonio, opened on a Monday in March. Sarah arrived 2 hours before her team. At 7 o'clock sharp, she gathered the 12 mechanics in the center of the shop. Good morning. Welcome to Henderson's Auto Shop, San Antonio. Some of you come from other shops, others are new to a commercial environment, but you're all here for the same reason. You're good at what you do. She paused. I want to establish something from day one. This shop operates on 3 principles. First, technical competence is all that matters. I don't care about your gender, age, where you learned. I only care that you do excellent work. Second, mutual respect is mandatory, not optional. We treat teammates with professionalism. 0 tolerance for discrimination of any kind. Third, we're always learning. I don't expect you to know everything. I expect you to ask questions, admit when you don't know something, help others improve. Robert, a 38-year-old man with the most experience, raised his hand. How will we handle it if a customer specifically requests a man work on their car? If a customer makes a request based on genuine preference, we'll accommodate it. But if the request is purely discriminatory, we'll politely explain that all our mechanics are equally qualified. If the customer insists on discriminating, they can take their business elsewhere. Robert nodded, satisfied. The first weeks proved the system worked. Patricia excelled with electrical problems. Sylvia had an intuitive ability to diagnose by sound. Gloria brought military discipline. Alice showed creative problem-solving. Second week, a customer arrived demanding a real man mechanic. Sarah kept her voice calm. "Sir, all our mechanics are equally qualified. If that's not acceptable, you're within your rights to seek service elsewhere." The man drove off angrily. Robert walked over. "You handled that well, boss. At first I had doubts about this team. But after working with Patricia, Sylvia, the others, they're as good as you said. 4th month in San Antonio, Mr. Fernandez visited. You've exceeded expectations. Profitability 20% above projections. Customer satisfaction at 98%. And your diverse team is outperforming traditional shops. Now I have a proposal. There's a regional automotive conference next month. I want you to present your system, how you built this team." Sarah prepared meticulously. When her turn came, she walked to the front. 50 business owners watched. "Good morning, my name is Sarah Mitchell. 6 months ago, I was hired as head mechanic. When I started, the shop had just opened, no track record. Today, we operate at 98% customer satisfaction, profitability 20% above projections. I'm going to tell you exactly how we did it." For 30 minutes, Sarah presented. Data, systems, but also about creating culture, building a team where talent was all that mattered. When she finished, there was genuine applause. A business owner asked, "You mentioned 4 women mechanics. Was that deliberate?" "Deliberate. I hired the most qualified people. It turned out that 4 of the most qualified candidates were women. Talent doesn't have gender." After the presentation, a man about 60 approached. "I've been in this business 40 years, never considered hiring a woman mechanic. You made me think differently. Thank you." 8 months in San Antonio, Mr. Fernandez called Sarah. "I'm opening a 5th shop in Houston. I need you to train someone for it. And in about 2 years, I need you to oversee both operations as regional manager." Sarah thought about Patricia. "I accept." The new salary transformed everything. Sarah began training Patricia for leadership. Leadership doesn't come from a title. It comes from consistency, from doing what you said you'd do, from treating everyone with dignity. One Sunday, Sarah visited the original Hendersons. Albert greeted her warmly. "I hired 2 women mechanics after seeing your success. It worked." Then William approached. "I want to apologize. When you arrived, I treated you unfairly because your capability threatened me. I was wrong. I'm sorry." Sarah studied him. "I appreciate the apology, and I accept it." If you've made it this far, hit that like button and subscribe to Underrated Mechanics. 2.5 years since that first day, Henderson's Auto Shop Houston opened with 25 mechanics, 17 men, 8 women. Patricia was promoted to head mechanic. Now as regional manager, Sarah oversaw 3 shops, 57 mechanics total. She implemented training programs and a specific program for women mechanics. "I hired you because you're the best, but I know your path is different. So let the work speak, keep standards high, and when someone underestimates you, use that as motivation." The moment Sarah treasured most came months later. A young woman, 18-year-old Rosa Garcia, arrived looking for work. "Why mechanics?" "Because I read an article about you. I saw it was possible. That if you could do it, maybe I can too." Sarah looked at this young woman. "Would you be willing to start as an apprentice?" Rosa's eyes shone. I accept. Absolutely accept. That night, Sarah told Helen, "You planted a seed, and now that seed's germinating. We're near the end. Make sure you're subscribed to Underrated Mechanics." Sunday afternoon, Sarah sat with Helen on the back porch. "You know what makes me happiest? It's that every day you're planting seeds. Each one will grow into something bigger. Change is generational." Exactly. One person changes another who changes another, and eventually the world is different. As the sun set, Sarah thought about the journey. From that first day, 10 mechanics laughing, to now, supervising 57 mechanics, changing mindsets one person at a time. The road hadn't been easy, but she didn't quit. And in not quitting, she'd opened doors for Rosa, Patricia, Sylvia, Gloria, Alice, and dozens more who would come after. Every door opened made the next step easier. The change was slow but real, because the work wasn't about changing the world overnight. It was about making the next step easier for whoever came behind, about planting the next seed, something that would last far longer than any engine repair, something that would change lives. If you face challenges that seem impossible, remember, competence beats prejudice. Excellent work speaks louder than 1,000 words. Thanks for watching this story on Underrated Mechanics. If it inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe, and comment below telling me where you're watching from. See you in the next one.